And that's what I say. And and when you talk about leadership skills and traits, what I find is paradoxal at times is sometimes someone's biggest detriment in their traits is their superhero skill overused.
Oh, sure. You can't be a one trick pony, right? You've got to be
Yeah.
able to go out there. You know, I'm really good. Okay, I'm not conflict avoidant. Okay, if there's a problem, I like to go right into it and address it head on. Now, that's a great superpower to have because it does cut through clutter and it does get stuff done. But if I overdo that, then I am a bull in a china shop and to the
Yes.
detriment of me and my team. So that is an example of what you're talking about where your superpower, if overused, is a weakness and can get turned inside out. And that's why being self and situationally aware is really important as a leader because you have to know yourself and you have to know yourself on that particular day because there's a lot of external noise in our lives, whether it's, at home with, the family, the kids, or, I've got some farm animals, maybe my goat got, is having some babies or whatever it is. I'm thinking about all kinds of noise in my head as I'm getting ready to go into a very important place, the operating room, to help a patient in need. And I've got to be able to cut through that clutter and focus so I can do what I need to do when I need to do it, and to be able to laser focus and understand that is very important. Also, I think whenever you're trying to do anything important.
Yeah. That leads me directly into the official first question, Gabler.
Okay.
So, do you like to be called Gabler or Mike?
Oh, Gabler. I like the name Mike. I do. Everybody does, but there's a lot of Mikes. So if you yell out Mike, usually about 10 people turn around. So I've been called Gabler since I was in high school, and just that's probably the best way to go.
That's awesome. I didn't, like when I grew up, going through like gym class and stuff, everyone had to wear like the white T-shirt and the black shorts, and so like they took the military approach and they wrote Husted first on your front shirt, right, and then on your back shirt, and so I've been Husted since sixth grade.
There you go. That's how
So
it is. That's
yeah,
right.
and so um, I'm learning to become Zach. It's super funny, and like as anyway, that's a whole different story. But first question, Gabler, as you, it's about leading in innovation. With your extensive experience in the medical device industry and dealing with operating room experience around the heart valve technology that you've talked about, how do you approach leadership in those environments where like literally requires constant innovation and adaptation, right? Like you're literally standing in a room of professionals.
Top
You've
professional.
openly declared that you're not a veteran, you're not a doctor, you're not a surgeon, right? From all the different things that people can learn about you. And you're, quite frankly, you're dealing with one of the most sensitive situations and vulnerable situations of a human
Yes.
being. Their heart and chest is open as doctors are sitting there and you're in those moments with them. Like, how do you deal with that?
You know, when I think the key component to leadership is trust. And while I am not the leader in the operating room, it does vary depending on what part of the case is. It could be the cardiac surgeon, could be the interventional structural cardiologist, it could be the anesthesia uh, physician, it could be a nurse, a tech, or it could be me. Everybody has a role in there, but fundamental to leadership is trust and establishing trust and is how you gain confidence and gain momentum as a team. And if you go back to Survivor, trust was the currency on the beach on Survivor as well. Without trust, you do not move forward. And the same thing in the operating room. I have to trust everybody on that team that's going to do their job, and they're trusting me to do my job. And I also know what their jobs are so that I can watch them in case, they're really focused on X, Y, and Z. I can look at ABC and say, oh, don't forget the wires coming back or whatever it is that I'm doing. So trust is imperative to leadership. And really, any human interaction, whether it's with your children, your spouse, your parents, your colleagues, and it's everything. So if you can establish trust as a leader, you're halfway there to being successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. What do you do in those situations where you're in those situations and the person's like, man, just trust me, I got it. Stay out of my
You,
way.
you know what? You trust them. If that's the case, you trust them. Now, that trust can be broken by a mistake or ego getting in the way. That is a possibility. However, if you, because of the close nature of the work we the important nature, the closest to the team is imperative. Because it is, for us to be launching a new transcatheter valve therapy, we have to have everyone prepared. I mean, you have to do your homework, you have to come prepared, and that way you have confidence in yourself to do your best. And if you've done that, and everybody on the team has done that, if anesthesia says something and is giving us a warning about something and we override them, that is a failure on our part, right? We need to listen. And if everybody there is has built trust and is on a team that has been successful because we've trusted each other. We have seen our trust validated and reaffirmed again and again with every procedure we do. If somebody does say, abort, 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 stop what we're doing, even me, okay, I'm not a physician, I'm not a doctor, but I have the power to say abort in the room that we're in. If I see something going wrong, my eyes are as respected as anybody's in there. And if I see something not adding up, I see our pacemaker losing capture, I see a random beat coming through that could eject a valve into the aorta or the ventricle, I can sound off, and my docs, without question, if I say abort, we will abort. We will pull everything back, we will reassess, and we will move forward. And, it's not like you do this all the time, and you don't want to cry wolf because that will negatively affect your trust in the future. But I've obviously been doing this a long time, so I've built up a lot of trust. I have good experience, and I whenever I sound off, it's kind of like that E.F. Hutton from way back in the '80s. When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. So it's kind of like if I'm yelling abort, there's something wrong. They don't know what maybe they don't know what it is exactly, but we'll stop. And same thing with nurses, techs, anybody else in the room. It's a very flat playing field once you go into the operating room. Even though the surgeons are up high, the cardiologists are up high, and all this other stuff, everybody checks egos in the pre-brief to make sure that we're all prepared, humble to listen, and empowered to do what we do best. And that's why it works out so well for us. In fact, everything we do in the operating room is based on patience, practice, program. In that order, the three P's. If it
Yep.
works for the patient, it works for the practice, it works for the program. That works for me. If you do it in any other order, if you put the practice first, the program first, or anything, if you do not put the patient first, then you're failing. And we've learned that over many years. And our motto is, our team, our clinicians depend upon us. We depend on each other. Our patients and our clinicians depend upon us. We depend on each other. That's our mantra to keep things grounded. It's very simple. It's like do your best, and everybody does their job. We win for patients every time. And that's what you would want if you were having a surgery, or
Yeah.
I was, or a loved one. I'd want that team wholly focused on the outcome for that patient. And it's a sacred duty when a patient submits to anesthesia to go to say, okay, I'm going to lay here still and I'm going to trust you to fix my heart.
Man,
That's
that
a It's big, right, Zach? That's big. And
there's no other vulnerability.
it's
Like,
pretty wide open, and we take that so seriously, and that's what helps drive us because we know patients are counting on us and their families. So every single case, we do approach it with that tenacity and that level of discipline in order to be our best for those patients that need us. And as a result, we have fantastic results. We really do. We have great results from that. So it's working.
That's, dude, what an awesome dialogue on that. I love it. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's all founded and rooted in trust.
Yes, sir.
And
Trust.
and it there's and knowing what the roles are of your teammates, and it's about mutual respect.
Yes, it is. It's earned respect
Earned respect.
because we'll get new people on our team, and it takes about 3 years to get pretty good at what we do. About 3 years, you're okay at it, and then about 5 years, you become pretty good. But it takes a little. The first year, you're just like there's usually people that are supporting them or managing them in cases to make sure that they're doing the correct things, and double checking their film reads and all that stuff because it takes. This is how we're slowly building trust, but
Yeah.
we're not gonna trust somebody outright when there's patience involved.
You can't.
Too important.
Too important. It's life or death.
Life or death. Every patient deserves the very best. So we will double. It takes a long time to bring somebody into the team new because you have to work them up. And like I said, it takes 3 years before they're pretty much on their own. They can be on their own in about 3 years, but it takes a long time for us to get somebody to where we need them to be so that they can be their best in a complex situation that goes bad because sometimes they do go badly, and that's when all those things that you've learned come forward in a rush. And you were in the military, all that training is for sometimes months can go by and you don't need it, and all of a sudden minutes come by and seconds matter,
Yeah.
right?
Let me tell you about a time real quick before we go on to the next question.
Tell us.
I was out at my buddy's house. Excuse me. He lives down that way. I mean, it doesn't matter to you, but he lives that way, and he lives on a farm. They got farm animals, and I took my middle daughter Hannah out with me to go look at the farm animal. She loves animals, and we were out there checking stuff out. And at this time, they had horses, they had a big potbelly pig, they have chickens, and they have goats at their house. And like, there's other wide variety of animals. And we go in, and we're gonna go see the goats. But in order to get to the goats, we got to go through the pig pen. And so we do that. Hannah's behind me. It's my buddy, me, Hannah, and my dog Tucker. Okay. And he's like, "Hey, we got to be careful of the goats. They're kind of, one of them's kind of rowdy." And I'm like, "It's a goat."
They're all pretty rowdy. I've got two right over there.
And he's like, "Yeah, it's kind of rowdy." And I'm like, "It's like, okay." And like, I obviously am not around goats enough to know that a goat can be rowdy. And so we go over, and he's excited to show us the goats. And we go over there, and you'll see where I'm going with this in just a second. And this one like starts to try to headbutt.
That's what they do for fun. So when they're like a dog will like play around, a cat will purr, a goat will headbutt you. That's
Yeah,
what they do when they're
it
having
starts
fun.
headbutting him, and then it starts to try to charge at my daughter. And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You gotta go!" And I'm like, "Dude," "Hannah, get out of here!" And then it like full bore runs at my buddy, trying to get to my daughter. And he grabs this thing and he spins it around, and they both end up on the ground. And I'm like, "Holy crap!" I'm like, "Dude, that goat just kicked your butt." And he's like, "Oh," he's like, "Dude, get out!" Because this thing's in like full temper mode now. And I'm like, "It's a
And it's
goat."
big. It can be big, yeah.
Yeah, like, and I mean, it's not a little goat; it's a big goat. And all of a sudden, I'm walking over, and I look down at my feet, and I have flip flops on, and there's blood all over me.
Oh,
And I'm like, looking at my daughter. I'm like, "Honey, are you okay? Like, come here." And like, I'm looking all over, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" And she's fine. She's like, "Dad, what's going on?" I look down at me again, and there's literally blood all over me. I look over at my buddy, and I'm like, "Oh my God." And he's got blood pouring out of him.
what?
And I'm like, "Dude, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And I'm like, "Dude, turn around. Turns around. And if this is his leg right here,
Yeah.
just below his knee, so this is my camera's moving on me, right here,
Yeah.
like thigh, it hit right here.
The horn went through there.
It went through there, punctured him.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God.
That
Oh
goat
my.
needs to be on a barbecue. I don't know.
And so I'm like, so I revert back to my training, right? Like
Oh
self-aid buddy
yeah.
care training. And I'm like screaming. I'm like, tourniquet, tourniquet.
Yes.
And like,
Yeah.
that's all I can think. And I'm trying to like help him get over to my truck. And he's on the phone trying to call his wife. And I don't have a tourniquet. And so I'm like, oh my God, how do I stop it? Because it's like, it's
Oh yeah.
spurting.
Wow. Wow.
And we're out in the country, we're on his farm. And so I'm like, what can act as a tourniquet? I have the tie down straps, you know, the one that you push the lever
Good.
and it slides.
Yeah.
I put that around his leg, I tighten it, and then like I compress it even further. Pretty sure I saved his leg that day. It
Wow.
was the most unbelievable story ever. Of like
Wow.
in that moment, I reverted back to the training, and so the whole story is about you. Like the training is critical. You like you don't forget it until you need it, and
Yeah. And you train the way you're going to, like the gladiator or samurai warriors, where they train the way they're going to fight.
yeah,
That way they're ready. If things go bad, you are prepared. And that is where, teams, you study, you plan, you communicate, and you share best practices so that when things are going 100 miles an hour in every direction, there's clarity in your training because you revert back to that at core and therefore you're successful. But it takes that. Nobody, a gladiator doesn't walk into the arena saying, hey, let's figure out, hey, I'm going to use a sword today. Let's figure this out. No, they're going to be dead. You got to be training you could train for years. I tell our new folks this. You're going to train, you may train for years for that day where you will be needed to save somebody's life. It will come down to you. If you're in the OR long enough, it will be on you. And it's very humbling and rewarding when we have a a something catastrophic happens in a case and one of our new people are able to rise up based on their training for years and be the hero of the day. Like to say, like, oh my gosh, that was so important that the contribution by so and so really led to the team the right direction. We were going down this path, and they were like, no, I'm sure it's on this side. Maybe check the whatever. And they grow like 10 feet taller that day.
yeah,
Like and then you have to almost humble it down, which is why about 3 years you become pretty good at this. About 5 years is when you're humble and you're good. You understand. You still have there's still weaknesses, but you feel pretty bulletproof about 3 years when you start contributing to the outcomes on patients for sure.
yeah, man. And so
Wow.
my buddy, he's fine. He's good. He didn't bleed out. But man,
What
it
what
was
what did he sever? Did they sever an
it hit
artery in his
it hit
leg? I'm
it hit
guessing.
the artery in the back of his leg, and
Popliteal. There's a popliteal artery back there.
I think that's the one.
Is it? That's it. Wow.
And dude, the tourniquet. He told me he's like got to the hospital, and like when they went to go take it off, they're like, man, you like whoever put this on put it on really good. And I'm
Well,
like,
how about that? That's freaking awesome. Your training, the military training, saved a life on that because you're right. If he would have just tried to hold pressure, especially under the knee, you're not going to get to the back of that very well. He would have bled out to the hospital.
yeah, it was I was just like I look back at it and I was like screaming tourniquet. Anyway, it's super funny.
Isn't that amazing? Well, that goat needs to have a barbecue and be done because any goat that does that, nope.
I don't know where the goat ended up. Um, I'm pretty sure that it ended up on a different farm. So I don't
Yeah,
think any animals were harmed in the filming of this episode.
good. Well, that's good.
So as we talk about this, let's transition to the next
Yeah,
question.
sorry.